The Galactic Assembly had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. Its great halls floated in the empty space between galaxies. Thousands of species sent their best leaders to speak and vote on laws that governed a million worlds. The Assembly believed it knew everything worth knowing. It believed it had seen every wonder the universe could offer. It was wrong. The day everything changed started like any other. A monitoring station on the edge of known space detected a small object drifting through the void. The object was tiny and slow. It moved on chemical rockets that burned simple fuel. A golden disk was attached to its side with pictures and sounds from a distant world. The station's computer logged the object and sent a report to the Assembly's Science Division. Species number 4217 had been discovered, a primitive civilization on a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. The report recommended checking on them again in 3 to 5 centuries. Perhaps by then they would be ready to join galactic society. The report was filed and forgotten. The Assembly had more important things to worry about. 40 years passed. On the frozen moon called Europa, human scientists drilled through miles of ice. They were looking for signs of life in the dark ocean below. What they found instead would change the fate of every living being in the galaxy. The drill broke through into an air pocket that should not have existed. Inside that pocket sat a ship. The ship was ancient beyond measure. Its metal was strange and dark. Its design followed no pattern human engineers could understand. The ship had been waiting under the ice for 60 million years. Dr. Sarah Chen was the first human to step inside the alien vessel. She walked through corridors that lit up at her approach. She touched walls that hummed with sleeping power. In the heart of the ship, she found the reactor. Across the galaxy, every monitoring station owned by the Assembly suddenly screamed with alarms. An energy signature had appeared near that primitive blue planet. The signature was impossible. It matched technology that had vanished from the universe long before the Assembly existed. Technology from the precursors, the ancient race that had built the hyperlanes and then disappeared without explanation. The Assembly sent investigators. By the time they arrived, the humans had already cracked the reactor's secrets. Human nations had spent centuries fighting each other. They had built weapons that could destroy their entire world many times over. They had poisoned their air and water with endless wars. But the discovery on Europa changed everything. For the first time in their history, humans truly united. The Terran Compact was born. Every nation on Earth joined together under one government. Every scientist worked toward one goal. Every factory built components for one project. Humanity had found proof that they were not alone in the universe. They had found technology beyond their wildest dreams, and they were determined to use it. 5 years after the discovery, the first human faster-than-light ship launched from Earth orbit. It did not use the hyperlanes that connected every other civilization in the galaxy. It did not follow the safe paths that the Assembly had mapped over thousands of years. Instead, it simply vanished from one point in space and appeared at another. The Assembly's scientists watched in disbelief. Their instruments could not explain what they had witnessed. The human ship had manipulated something fundamental, something that should not be possible to touch. Dark matter made up most of the universe's mass. It was invisible and intangible. It passed through normal matter like a ghost walking through walls. Every civilization in the galaxy had studied dark matter. None had ever found a way to use it. Until now. The human diplomatic vessel arrived at the Assembly's capital station without warning. It did not emerge from a hyperlane terminus like every other ship. It simply appeared, sliding out of nothing like a knife being drawn from a sheath. The ship's hull was black in a way that hurt to look at. It seemed to drink light rather than reflect it. Streamers of darkness trailed behind it like smoke. Station security scrambled to respond. Weapons locked onto the strange vessel. Shields powered up. Alarms rang through every corridor. Then the human ship broadcast a message. The message was in perfect assembly standard, the common language of galactic civilization. The voice was calm and friendly. "This is Ambassador Yuki Tanaka of the Terran Compact. We come in peace and request permission to present our credentials to the Galactic Assembly." The Assembly had protocols for first contact. These protocols had been developed over thousands of years and tested on hundreds of species. They involved careful evaluation, slow integration, and constant monitoring. A new species was supposed to spend centuries proving itself worthy of membership. But the protocols had never accounted for a species like humanity. A species that had gone from chemical rockets to impossible technology in less than 50 years. A species that had arrived not as humble petitioners, but as equals. Ambassador Tanaka walked through the great halls of the assembly with her head held high. She was a small woman with gray hair and kind eyes. She smiled at the alien delegates who stared at her with mixtures of fear and curiosity. She shook hands and tentacles and appendages that had no human name. The assembly granted humanity provisional membership. It was the fastest acceptance in recorded history. The vote was unanimous, though many delegates would later admit they had been too shocked to think clearly. Behind the public ceremonies, intelligence services from every major species worked frantically. They needed to understand what humanity had done. They needed to know if humans were a threat. The answers they found gave them no comfort. Human history was a story of endless violence and impossible survival. Humans had nearly destroyed themselves a dozen times. Each time, they had pulled back from the edge and grown stronger. Now they had technology that could reshape the universe itself. The Galactic Assembly had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. It had seen empires rise and fall. It had weathered wars and plagues and disasters beyond counting. But it had never faced anything like humanity. And somewhere in the dark spaces between stars, others were watching. Others who saw humanity not as a mystery to be studied, but as a prize to be claimed. The universe was about to learn what humans could do when threatened. First, Assessor Kethril had spent her entire life studying dangerous things. She had analyzed weapons that could crack planets in half. She had predicted wars before the first shot was fired. She had looked into the eyes of dictators and warlords and seen the darkness in their souls. Nothing had prepared her for humanity. Kethril belonged to the Velkari, a species known for their analytical minds and patient nature. Her people lived for centuries and thought in terms of generations. She had joined the Assembly's Security Directorate 300 years ago. In all that time, she had never felt true fear. Now she felt it every day. Her office was buried deep in the heart of the Assembly's intelligence complex. Screens covered every wall, showing data streams from 1,000 sources, reports from spies, analysis from scientists, recordings of every human broadcast that reached Assembly space. For 3 standard years, Kethril had done nothing but study humanity. She had read their histories. She had watched their entertainment. She had analyzed their wars and their art and their dreams. What she found kept her awake at night. Human history was soaked in blood. That fact alone was not unusual. Most species fought wars on their path to the stars. The Velkari themselves had nearly wiped out a rival subspecies in their distant past. Violence was part of evolution. But humans were different. They had not simply fought wars. They had perfected war. They had turned killing into an industry. Kethril pulled up images on her screen. Human soldiers marching in endless rows. Human factories producing weapons by the millions. Human cities reduced to ash and rubble, only to be rebuilt and destroyed again. The numbers were staggering. In one conflict alone, humans had killed 70 million of their own kind, not over centuries, in just 6 years. They had used weapons that poisoned the land for generations. They had built machines specifically designed to kill as efficiently as possible. And then, impossibly, they had done something worse. They had developed nuclear weapons, bombs that could vaporize cities in an instant, radiation that could make entire regions uninhabitable. A single human nation could destroy all life on their planet with the push of a button. Any other species would have used such weapons immediately, or they would have destroyed the weapons in horror at their own creation. Humans did neither. They built more bombs. They pointed them at each other. They lived for decades under the constant threat of total annihilation. And they kept advancing. They kept exploring. They kept dreaming of the stars. Kethril did not understand how this was possible. Her psychological models said that humans should have destroyed themselves long ago. Their aggression levels were far beyond any safe threshold. Their willingness to risk everything should have led to extinction. Instead, it had led to dark matter technology. The Assembly's best scientists had finally produced a theory explaining human faster-than-light travel. The theory made Kethril's blood run cold. Dark matter was the invisible foundation of the universe. It shaped galaxies and guided the flow of cosmic energy. Every civilization knew it existed, but no one had ever found a way to interact with it. The forces involved were too vast. The energy required was too immense. Humans had found a way. Their ships created pockets of altered physics using dark matter manipulation. Inside these pockets, the normal rules simply stopped working. Distance became meaningless. Speed limits disappeared. The impossible became routine. The reactors that powered these ships should not exist. They generated more energy than the Assembly's most advanced power plants while fitting inside vessels smaller than a patrol craft. The science behind them was so far beyond current understanding that it might as well be magic. Kethril ran simulations. If humans could manipulate dark matter for propulsion, they could manipulate it for other purposes. She modeled weapons that could crush matter into neutron-dense spheres, shields that could deflect anything the universe could throw at them, devices that could reach across light years and tear targets apart from the inside. The simulations kept her awake for 3 nights straight. She wrote her report with shaking hands. Her recommendation was clear and simple. Humanity must be quarantined immediately. Their technology must be seized and destroyed. If necessary, their species must be eliminated before they could become a threat to all life in the galaxy. The Assembly rejected her report unanimously. Humanity had broken no laws, the Council said. Their technology was unusual but not illegal. They had been nothing but friendly and cooperative since first contact. Quarantine would violate every principle the Assembly stood for. Kethril argued. She pleaded. She showed them her simulations and her analysis. The Council smiled and nodded and did nothing. They did not understand. They had forgotten what it meant to be afraid. The Assembly had enjoyed peace for so long that they could no longer imagine true danger. Their fleets were designed to police trade routes and chase pirates. Their weapons were meant to intimidate, not destroy. They had grown soft and comfortable in their ancient halls. Kethril saw the truth that they were blind to. Humanity was not just another species seeking membership. They were a force of nature wrapped in flesh and bone. They had climbed out of the mud and reached for the stars with bloody hands. They had survived everything their universe could throw at them. And now they had power that could reshape reality itself. What Kethril did not know was that her report had not stayed secret. A copy had been intercepted by agents of the hegemony of Kravith, a military alliance on the Assembly's far border. The Kravith had been watching humanity with great interest. Where Kethril saw danger, the Kravith saw opportunity. Where she saw a threat to be eliminated, they saw technology to be stolen. The Kravith High Command began planning. Their target was not Earth, which was too well protected. Instead, they chose a softer target, a young colony with millions of human civilians and no military defenses. Proxima Colony had no idea what was coming. In her office, Kethril stared at her screens and felt the weight of approaching disaster. She had done everything she could. No one had listened. Now she could only watch and wait for the storm to break. She hoped she was wrong about humanity. She hoped they were the peaceful explorers they claimed to be. But deep in her ancient heart, she knew the truth. She had studied their history. She had seen what they did when threatened. The galaxy was about to learn a lesson it would never forget. The attack came without warning on a peaceful morning. Proxima Colony was humanity's oldest settlement beyond Earth. 16 million people lived in domed cities spread across a rocky world orbiting the nearest star to Sol. They were farmers and teachers and engineers. They were families with children and grandparents and dreams of building a new world. They were completely defenseless. Maria Santos was walking her daughter to school when the sky turned dark. She looked up and saw shapes blocking the sun. Hundreds of ships hung in the sky like angry thunderclouds. Their hulls bristled with weapons. Their running lights glowed red like demon eyes. The broadcast came moments later. Every screen on the planet displayed the same image. An alien face filled with sharp teeth and cold intelligence. The creature spoke in broken human language. "People of Earth," the alien said, "I am Fleet Commander Vakril of the Kravath Hegemony. Your species has technology that belongs to us now. You will surrender all data related to dark matter manipulation. You will hand over all scientists involved in this research. You will do this within 1 standard hour. If you refuse, this colony will be destroyed. Every man, woman, and child will die. You have 1 hour." The transmission cut off. Silence fell over the colony. Maria held her daughter close as screams began to echo through the streets. People ran in every direction. There was nowhere to go. There was nothing they could do. On Earth, the emergency signal arrived 14 minutes later. The Terran Compact's War Council gathered in a bunker beneath the Swiss Alps. Military commanders shouted over each other. Politicians argued about responses. Diplomats tried to contact the assembly for help. Admiral Elena Vasquez sat quietly through it all. She was an old woman with white hair and eyes that had seen too much. She had commanded fleets in the corporate wars that had nearly torn Earth apart before the Compact formed. She had been present when the precursor ship was opened on Europa. She had spent the last 5 years preparing for this exact moment. When the shouting died down, she stood. "The shepherd is ready," she said. The room went silent. Every person present knew what those words meant. They had hoped this day would never come. They had prayed that humanity's new technology would never need to be used for violence. But they had also prepared. The TCS Shepherd was humanity's first true warship. Officially, it existed as a research vessel. Its construction had been hidden from the assembly's observers. Its capabilities had never been tested in combat. Until now. The Shepherd waited in a hidden dock carved into an asteroid near Jupiter. It was 3 kilometers long, shaped like a teardrop made of absolute darkness. Its hull did not reflect light. Instead, it seemed to drink it in, leaving only emptiness behind. No weapons were visible on its surface. No engines. No ports or windows or markings of any kind. It was beautiful in the way that a predator was beautiful. Elegant and terrible and perfect. Captain James Okonkwo sat in the command chair at the heart of the ship. Around him, holographic displays showed everything happening in the Proxima system. He saw the Kravath fleet in orbit. He saw the terrified civilians on the planet below. He saw the countdown timer showing 37 minutes until the deadline expired. "Navigation," he said calmly. "Plot a fold to Proxima orbit. Weapons, bring all systems online. Communications, prepare a broadcast on all frequencies." His crew moved with quiet efficiency. They had trained for this. They had prayed they would never need to use their training, but they were ready. The Shepherd's dark matter drive engaged. Space itself seemed to twist around the vessel. A corridor of impossible geometry opened before it. removing the distance between Jupiter and Proxima as if it had never existed. The journey took 11 minutes. Fleet Commander Vokral was reviewing execution protocols when his sensor officer screamed. A contact had appeared directly behind the flagship, not approaching, not emerging from hyperspace, simply appearing from nothing. Vokral spun to look at the tactical display. A single ship sat in the middle of his fleet. It was black against the black of space, visible only as an absence of stars. It was a third the size of his flagship. "All weapons target that vessel." He roared, "Fire immediately." 300 Kravath warships opened fire at once. Plasma bolts and kinetic rounds and missile swarms converged on the human ship. Energy enough to crack a planet poured into that small dark shape. Nothing happened. The weapons simply vanished as they approached the human vessel. They did not explode or deflect. They ceased to exist. The dark matter field around the Shepherd was so dense that conventional matter could not survive within it. Captain Okonkwo watched the attack with calm eyes. He felt nothing but sadness. These aliens had threatened to murder 16 million innocent people. They had given him no choice. "Broadcast our response," he ordered. Every speaker on every Kravath ship crackled with a human voice. "This is Captain James Okonkwo of the Terran compact ship Shepherd. You have threatened our people. You have demanded our surrender. We do not surrender. We do not submit. We do not forgive. Leave this system immediately or face destruction." Vokral laughed. One ship against 300. The humans were insane. "Kill them," he ordered. The Shepherd's weapons activated. Dark matter made up most of the universe's mass. It passed through normal matter without interaction. But the Shepherd could change that. It could make dark matter solid. It could make it heavy. It could make it crush anything caught within its grasp. The Kravath flagship did not explode. It simply compressed. Every atom in its structure suddenly experienced gravitational forces beyond imagination. 300 meters of warship became a sphere of superdense matter the size of a marble. The process took 3,000ths of a second. The marble hung in space for a moment, glowing white-hot. Then it winked out of existence, too small and too heavy to survive in normal space. Fleet Commander Vokral and his entire crew ceased to exist so quickly that they never knew what happened. Silence fell over the remaining Kravath fleet. Then the screaming began. Ships broke formation and fled in every direction. They abandoned their mission. They abandoned their honor. They ran as fast as their engines could carry them, desperate to escape the nightmare that had appeared among them. The Shepherd let them go. Captain Okonkwo watched the fleet scatter into hyperspace. His hands were steady. His heart was heavy. He had never wanted to take lives. He had joined the Navy to protect his people, not to kill. But he had done what was necessary, and he had sent a message that the entire galaxy would hear. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was not a victim. Humanity was something the universe had never seen before. And anyone who threatened human lives would learn that lesson the hard way. On the planet below, Maria Santos looked up as sunlight returned to the sky. The alien ships were gone. The nightmare was over. She held her daughter tight and cried tears of relief. She did not know it yet, but she had just witnessed the moment when everything changed. The moment when humanity announced its true nature to the stars. The Shepherd hung in orbit, dark and silent and waiting, ready to protect, ready to destroy. Ready for whatever came next. The Galactic Assembly had not held an emergency session in 800 years. The last time had been when a rogue black hole threatened to destroy 3 inhabited systems. Before that, it had been a plague that nearly wiped out a founding species. Now, for the first time in almost a millennium, representatives from every known civilization gathered in the Great Hall. The chamber was vast beyond human imagination. It stretched for kilometers in every direction, filled with platforms and seats designed for beings of every shape and size. Light filtered through crystal walls, casting rainbow patterns across thousands of nervous faces. They had all seen the recordings from Proxima. They had all watched a single human ship destroy a Kravith flagship in less than a heartbeat. They had all realized that everything they knew about power in the galaxy had just become meaningless. Ambassador Yuki Tanaka walked to the central platform with measured steps. She wore a simple gray suit. Her white hair was pulled back in a neat bun. Her expression was calm and pleasant, as if she were attending a garden party rather than facing the judgment of 1,000 civilizations. Behind her, a massive holographic display showed the Proxima engagement from 17 different angles. The assembly's best analysts had studied every frame. They still could not explain what they had witnessed. Tanaka reached the podium and looked out at the assembled delegates. She saw fear in their eyes, fear and anger and confusion, and a desperate hope that somehow this could all be explained away. She felt sorry for them. They were about to learn a truth that would shake their comfortable world to its foundations. "Distinguished delegates," she began, "thank you for gathering on such short notice. I understand that recent events have caused concern throughout the assembly. I am here to address those concerns directly." The display shifted, showing the Kravith fleet moments before the attack. 300 warships, representing the military might of an entire alliance, weapons capable of destroying worlds, crews trained in centuries of conquest. 47 hours ago, this fleet appeared above our colony at Proxima. They threatened to murder 16 million civilians, including over 2 million children, unless we surrendered our technology. They gave us 1 hour to comply. Tanaka's voice remained steady. Her eyes swept across the crowd. "We did not seek this conflict. Since the moment of first contact, the Terran Compact has sought nothing but peaceful integration into your community. We have shared our culture. We have opened our borders to your scientists and diplomats. We have followed every protocol and respected every law." She paused, letting the silence stretch. "But we will not be victimized. We will not surrender our technology to those who would use it against us, and we will not allow our people to die at the hands of aggressors." The display changed again. Now it showed the Shepherd, dark and silent against the stars. One ship was dispatched to Proxima. One ship faced 300. The engagement lasted less than 4 seconds. The hologram replayed the destruction of the Kravith flagship. Gasps echoed through the Great Hall. Some delegates turned away. Others watched with horrified fascination. The remaining Kravith vessels were allowed to retreat. We had no desire for further bloodshed, but we wanted them to survive. We wanted them to tell others what they had witnessed. A voice called out from the crowd. It belonged to a being that looked like a spider made of crystal and light. "How many ships like this do you possess? What are the limits of this technology? You must explain yourselves." Tanaka smiled gently. "With respect, the specifics of our defensive capabilities are classified. I am sure you understand." More voices joined the outcry. Delegates demanded answers. They accused humanity of violating weapons treaties. They called for sanctions. They threatened to expel humanity from the assembly. Tanaka waited patiently for the noise to die down. "I understand your fear," she said finally. "I understand that what you have seen challenges everything you believed about power in this galaxy, but I ask you to consider something." She touched a control, and the display shifted one more time. Now it showed something very different. Human ships, but not warships. Medical vessels delivering supplies to plague-stricken worlds. Engineering teams helping rebuild after natural disasters. Scientists sharing agricultural techniques with species that had struggled to feed their populations. In the 3 years since first contact, humanity has participated in over 200 humanitarian missions across assembly space. We have saved lives. We have shared knowledge. We have asked for nothing in return except the chance to be part of something greater than ourselves. The images continued. human doctors treating alien children, human teachers working in schools on distant worlds, human hands reaching out to help those in need. Our technology could destroy this assembly, Tanaka said quietly. It could reduce every fleet gathered here to vapor. You know this now. You have seen proof. She leaned forward, her eyes meeting the gaze of every delegate who dared to look at her. But that was never the point. The weapons were never meant for conquest or domination. They exist for one reason and one reason only. They exist to ensure that no one, no species, no alliance, no empire can ever force us to choose between extinction and submission. First Assessor Kethril watched from her seat high in the gallery. She had been right about human power, but she was beginning to realize she had been wrong about human intentions. We are not your enemies, Tanaka continued. We are not here to rule you or replace you. We are here because the universe is vast and often cruel, and no species should have to face it alone. She straightened and spoke her final words with absolute conviction. Humanity asks only for peace, but if peace is denied, if our people are threatened, if our existence is at stake, then we will do whatever is necessary to survive. This is not a threat. This is simply the truth. Now you know what we are capable of. Now you know what we are willing to do. The choice of what comes next belongs to all of us. Ambassador Tanaka bowed slightly and stepped away from the podium. The great hall remained silent. 1,000 species sat frozen, trying to process what they had heard. The galaxy would never be the same. And somewhere in the darkness between stars, humanity's black ships waited and watched, ready to protect their people against whatever dangers the universe might bring. The Galactic Assembly had received its lesson. Now it needed to decide what it had learned. 50 years had passed since the Proxima incident. The galaxy had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. First Assessor Kethril sat in her garden, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of purple and gold. She was old now, even by Velkari standards. Her scales had faded to a pale silver. Her movements were slow and careful, but her mind remained sharp, and she spent her retirement years observing the new order that had emerged. The Kravath hegemony had collapsed within a year of the attack. The survivors who fled Proxima had spread their story across the Alliance. They spoke of a demon ship that drank light and crushed warships like paper. They spoke of weapons that turned matter itself into a prison. They spoke of a species that should not exist but would not be destroyed. The hegemony's client states had defected one by one. They saw no future in serving masters who had provoked such a terrible enemy. The Kravath military leadership had been executed by their own people, blamed for bringing disaster upon the entire alliance. Within a decade, the hegemony existed only in history books. The Galactic Assembly had debated humanity's status for 3 standard months after Ambassador Tanaka's speech. In the end, they had voted to grant full membership with permanent council representation. It was the fastest elevation in recorded history. Some said it was wisdom, others said it was fear. Kethril suspected it was both. But the official changes meant less than the unofficial ones. Human dark matter technology remained classified. No species had ever discovered the secrets behind their impossible reactors or reality-bending drives. Humanity guarded these secrets with absolute dedication. Their weapons stayed hidden. Their warships rarely appeared in public spaces. The applications of the technology, however, spread throughout the galaxy like seeds carried on the wind. Human engineers developed medical devices that could target individual cells. Doctors could now destroy cancer without harming healthy tissue. They could repair genetic damage that had once been considered permanent. Lifespans increased across dozens of species. Diseases that had plagued civilizations for millennia simply disappeared. Human agricultural scientists created systems that could make barren worlds bloom. Planets that had never supported life suddenly sprouted forests and fields. Species that had struggled with food shortages for centuries found themselves with abundance beyond imagination. Famine became a memory. Human architects designed construction techniques that made megastructures possible for civilizations that had never dreamed of building them. Orbital habitats, generation ships, stations that could house billions. Projects that would have taken millennia could now be completed in decades. Humanity shared everything, everything except the weapons. Kethril had asked Ambassador Tanaka about this once, years ago. Why share so much? Why help species that had feared and suspected humanity since first contact? Tanaka had smiled with that same gentle expression she always wore. Because it is the right thing to do, she had said simply. Because we remember what it was like to struggle. Because no one helped us and we wish someone had. Kethril had not fully believed her at the time. She had spent too many years studying threats to accept kindness at face value. But over the decades that followed, she had watched humanity's actions match their words. They gave without demanding. They helped without conquering. They protected without ruling. And yet they were never weak, never vulnerable, never foolish. Human warships patrolled the borders of known space. They rarely engaged in combat. They rarely needed to. Their very presence was enough to deter aggression. Pirates fled at the sight of those dark hulls. Hostile powers reconsidered their plans when human vessels appeared on their sensors. The Assembly had maintained peace for 12,000 years through treaties and diplomacy. Humanity maintained peace through something simpler and more primal. The promise that any attack on innocent lives would be answered with devastating force. It was a different kind of peace, a harder peace, but it was lasting. Kethril understood now what she had missed in her original analysis. She had seen human violence and assumed it defined them. She had studied their wars and missed the reasons behind those wars. Humans did not fight because they enjoyed destruction. They fought because they refused to submit. They fought to protect what they loved. The universe was dangerous. It had always been dangerous. The Assembly had simply forgotten this truth over millennia of comfortable stability. They had built their civilization on the assumption that nothing truly terrible would ever happen. Humans made no such assumption. They had stared into the abyss of extinction more times than they could count. They had faced asteroid impacts and ice ages and their own worst impulses. Each time they had survived. Each time they had grown stronger. Now they stood as shepherds of the galaxy, not rulers, not masters, shepherds. They watched over the flock without claiming to own it. They protected the weak without demanding obedience. They used their terrible power with restraint and wisdom. Kethril rose slowly from her chair and walked to the edge of her garden. The sky had darkened to deep purple. Stars were beginning to appear, scattered across the heavens like diamonds on velvet. Somewhere out there, human scientists were probing the deepest mysteries of dark matter and dark energy. They were studying the fundamental forces that shaped reality itself. They were preparing for threats that the Assembly could not imagine. Because they knew something that the galaxy was only beginning to understand. The cosmos was vast, the cosmos was ancient, and humanity had announced its presence to whatever else might be listening. There were things in the universe older and stranger than any species in the Assembly. There were dangers lurking in the spaces between galaxies. There were questions that no civilization had ever found answers to. Humans intended to find those answers. They intended to face those dangers. They intended to stand between their adopted family and whatever nightmares the universe might hold. Kethril watched the stars and felt something she had not felt in centuries: hope. She had been wrong about humanity. She was grateful for that mistake. The galaxy had gained not just a member species but a protector, a guardian, a shepherd with teeth of dark matter and a heart that refused to let the innocent suffer. Whatever came next, humanity would be ready. And they would not stand alone. The new equilibrium had begun. The universe would never be the same, and somewhere in the darkness between stars, humanity's black ships waited and watched, eternal sentinels against the endless night. This was their purpose, this was their gift. This was humanity.